Hello, hello. Welcome to Restore the Real. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in wherever you are, wherever you may be. We've got an exciting podcast today. And before I introduce our guest, I just want to take a minute and just thank you for the reviews. Thank you for the comments. And please, if you find value in this, like and share this. This is the only way we are able to get this content out is by you sharing, by you liking, supporting what we're doing, because these messages need to be heard. My guest today is Dr. Josh Handt, and I met him when I was in chiropractic school. He was actually the first, well, aside from my chiropractor at home, he was our first student chiropractor to adjust my wife, my daughter at the time, myself. And so this is going back to 2004, 2005.
Yeah.
And, a lot's changed in that time. But I remember just the mannerism and the authenticity that you had. And my wife appreciated that. And you were so good with my little girl. And it was so new for you. I mean, your dad's a chiropractor, so you'd been in that sphere, but I mean, it was just really cool. And then to watch on Facebook and see the things that you're doing now, it just, again, that authentic you has always been there. And I've appreciated that about you from afar.
Well,
welcome.
Thank you. You know, I was thinking about that last night before we got on today. I'm like, wow. He was like one of the first student patients I had in school. Like that's really, really a neat thing in student clinic. But fast forward, I mean, you've come also an unbelievably long way. You know, I've seen you talking on stages. The intelligence you have on the sphere of well-being, wellness, lifestyle, health, whatever terms people want to use, you're at the top of the game. So I want to appreciate you for that. I follow you, whether you know it or not. I pay attention.
That's cool. I appreciate that, because you never know. You never know how far-reaching what you're doing is, and how it influences other people. And I mean, again, I know watching you has had an influence on me, and I appreciate your kind words as well. So, yeah. Well, let's get into this. So you said something recently that I really liked, and I want to start with this. We both do a lot of hard things, right? People consider them hard things. I do Spartan races, you do ultra marathons, and these aren't just road races. You're up in the mountains, doing massive amount of elevation. But you said something that really resonated with me. It was like, these things aren't necessarily hard. I mean, they are in the moment, but the hard part is the consistency. What you don't see, you only see race day. People with the public eye, they see race day. They don't see what goes into that. Can you speak a little bit about that? How has that consistency become a part of your life? Has it always been a part of your life? And can you speak to that for a sec?
Yeah, sure. Growing up, I was a competitive alpine skier. Right? I did that for about 20 years. So I knew what it took to be good at something or better at something than maybe someone else was. I was in a small town, our ski slope, if you want to call it a mountain. It was more like the size of a garbage dump. But I was able to get really good. I listened to the coaching. I went the extra mile. I trained a little harder. If there was a snow day where we had to be at the mountain or on a ski day, I was the first person there and the last person off the mountain. So I had a little bit of that built in, and my parents always said, do what you love, you're going to work hard, and you reap the benefits of it. So I always pushed myself, and, fast forward now, I'll be August, I'll be 45. I've really started to build in, and it's been about since 2016, 2017, where I started to really build consistency and habits. And it started with me wanting to train for a marathon. I'm like, all right, before 40, I want to do a marathon. Nice. And I signed up for something. They don't have them anymore. It was called the North Face Endurance Challenge. And at the time, I picked it because it was close to my house, about 25 minutes away. It was at Bear Mountain, New York. It's a state park. And it was ranked as the hardest trail marathon at the time in the Northeast. So, of course, my wife's like, yeah, of course you picked this thing. I'm like, well, I didn't want to do on the street. I like nature. I want to be outside.
Yep.
And as the universe works, with me training my butt off, not really knowing, I didn't hire a coach at this time. I think there's a lot of cool benefit now with a lot of people that have a lot of experience, but I didn't hire a coach. I just said, you know what? I have this program that I kind of built out and followed where I was training every day, long and short runs and lifting weights and all these things. And I get to race day and we're driving up to Bear Mountain. It's on May 5th. I think it was May 5th, 2017. And we're going up. And to make a very long story short, it was 40 degrees in New York in May, which is not normal. And there was a nor'easter, which means it was high winds. And we had about 3 inches of rain during the marathon. So I think more than half the field dropped out. My wife's like, you're doing this, right? I'm like, hell yeah, I'm doing this. And finished the race. I had pre-hypothermia. I couldn't move my hands after. My wife's like, good, marathon in the bucket list. You're done. And I said, I think I could do more. And she knew my personality. She's like, oh no, here we go. Here we go. Because I never wanted to be a runner.
Right.
And what I learned through that initial process is that when you start to put consistent effort in anything in life, I had to really, wake up certain days and going, oh, I don't want to train today, but I would, whether it was a run or whether I was going to the gym and lifting weights, or I had some swimming in my protocol for training, even though I wasn't doing a triathlon. When I started to get this repetition, I felt better. I had more energy. My head was clear. I was able to focus and practice, being a chiropractor better. I was better in my relationships with my wife, my friends and family. And it was cool to see, maybe inspiring people along the way. Not that that was my goal, but this was for me, not for anybody else. But it's neat that I got to start to pick up people along the way. And to make, our conversation, I don't want to take over here. That was at the point when I realized that the work that's done behind the scenes is the most important work. That race day, that maybe that day that you're speaking on a stage in front of hundreds or thousands of people. People see that and go, oh my God, this guy's a natural. He's an overnight success. Sure. Right. Minus the, I think we're tracked over 9,000 miles since 2017 running. And it's like, no, I've put in a lot of work. So, and same with you on a stage, like, yeah, you just didn't show up and talk about gut health or something like that from a stage going, I learned this yesterday. I'm going to do everything today. No, you put in this training, the work, the brain health, all of these things. So I think that's the power in habit. And it's not, people say 21 days for a habit. I think that's the biggest lie in the world. I think you got to put months and months in to build something. Yeah. And then just like having clean teeth or a healthy spine, if you stop doing certain things, what you put in starts to go away. So you have to recharge yourself frequently. It doesn't need to be 365 days a year. I do. That's my what I need. But, if you do have these consistencies over the course of the year, whether it may be 6 months out of the year total, that you're, all right, I want to do the work really hard for these 6 months. Then you're going to really start to win and you're going to love it, that you're not going to want to stop.
Right. And I think that with that, like, you have to have targets. Right. I used to think, oh, we have a goal, but then it's like, okay, wait, but that one's done. Mm-hmm. And I think this target, and it's like a continuum that moves. Mm-hmm. I remember when I did my first Spartan race, this was back now in 2012. And, it was a patient of mine was like, Randy, I think you'll love this. This could be awesome. It's outside, you're running, you're doing obstacles. And again, I wasn't a runner either. I was like, I got to run. Like, I hate running. But the idea of being in the woods and the forest and then doing obstacles really intrigued me. And then I also wanted to prove to my dad that I could do this kind of stuff. He's former Marine, and
okay. Oh, that's very cool.
So, but I didn't. I did that, and I remember the training, and then I fell in love with trail running, and it was incredible. But again, it was the habit of doing that. And there was a time where it was like, I just want to go back out in the trails. I want to run again. And then the race comes. It's amazing. It's like the icing on the cake. That's the celebration, the event. All the training is like everything, the hard stuff. But, as you said, 21 days to make a habit? No, not really, because it's very easy to wake up and be like, I don't really want to do this today. Like you could be 3 months into it and the actual thing sucks. It's like, I don't want to go out and do 11 miles today. I don't want to do this. But I think what you focus on is so key, because it's like, wait, what am I going to feel like after I do this? What is it going to be like when it's done? And then when I get to celebrate the actual race day? Have you experienced that where you're like, again, I don't want to do this, but how does your mind focus and how do you shift that to be like, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway? What's the psychology behind that experience for you?
So I'm not sure the language. I want to keep my language as clean as I can, but what got me to do my first 100-mile race, or even get up to that, in 2019, I'd already done at that point. I think I already done like 50 Ks and 50 milers, and I started just stacking the miles in these races. And in 2019, I picked up the audiobook of David Goggins, which maybe many of your audience knows. I know you definitely know. Yep. And it was not like a motivational thing for me. It was an inspirational thing. And, you're listening to this guy's story, and everybody listening or watching, get the audiobook. There's some foul language in it, quite a bit of it, but it's going to wake you up in such a cool way that I listen to it.
It's a very different experience than reading it.
Yes.
Listening to it, very different experience.
Yes. The audiobook is great. And I listened to it 6 times in 2019, just to give you an idea. It's a 13-hour book, right? Yeah. That's how much I resonated with this. So what I realized from this guy being able to run on broken bones and all of these crazy things, he uses a term called your inner bitch voice, right? This inner wuss voice. And pre-starting our recording here, I'm on what's called phase 2 of Hard 75 now, and I got stuck in traffic last night. And just to your point of when you get up or when you have to do something you don't want to do, I got home. I have to do 2 workouts today. I got home at 8:15. I wanted to eat. I hadn't eaten really all day. I had a protein shake, some greens, and I was hungry. I said, I want to eat, but I know I have to work out tonight. And I had to work out outside. So I get home, I go out. It rained on and off all day, and there's thunder, there's lightning. It's starting to drizzle again before it starts to pour. And I'm going, all right. And at that point, I realized, these are the opportune moments to shut up the voice in your mind that is telling you you can't, you won't. Listen, I don't want anybody doing things and get them killed. That's not the point.
Right.
But, we can do so much. And I realized at that point that, what? These are the moments that matter the absolute most. Because whether it's in a relationship or in business or on your first 5K or your first marathon or whatever that is to you, you're going to get to the point where you go, I've been here before. That voice wants to shut up, and I know it was wrong because I was able to complete whatever my task was in that moment. So I took that. Well, it was last night, and I again did it this morning, a few hours later, my outdoor workout. But as I've trained over the years for these races, you get to points, and this happened to me in 10Ks and 15Ks and, half marathons when I was first starting, was going, oh my God, my legs are so sore. Mid-run, I'm like, I'm just going to stop. It's okay. Right. And I put 5 miles in out of 13. And then I would just have to tell myself, shut up. This is not you speaking. This is your educated mind going, that's okay. It's okay. Just, nobody cares. It's okay. And for me, those are some amazing defining moments for anybody, whether you're trying to lose weight or change your gut health. It's what? I know I should be eating X, but I tell you what, I'm at the most famous cookie stores right down the road from where I am right now. Just one time, what's going to be the big deal? And those are those defining moments again. So I think, to your point, that those are so powerful and they can change your life indefinitely if you start having those moments on a very regular basis.
You know what? I love that you say that and that you use that word defining moments, because I think often people look at defining moments as like these big experiences, like the race, like, oh man, this was like a defining moment in my life. No, the defining moment was like what you just said. It's 8:15. It's raining. It's thunder, lightning. I mean, everyone would be like, oh yeah, it makes sense. You don't want to go out, but you did. And you did the 45-minute, whether it was run or ruck.
Yeah, the ruck.
And you're wearing like 40 pounds, probably.
I do 30 on a regular basis because I was doing 40, and as a chiropractor, I started to play with my posture a little bit, and I couldn't turn
40's
my neck.
a lot. 30 still,
I'll do 40s, and I was doing 50s for a while, but I'm like, you know what, I'm going to keep consistent at 30. I have a 10-pound and a 5-pound plate that I'll intermittently put in and out just to change it up. But yes, it's 30 pounds every single day at a minimum.
But I think that that it is those moments that do define us, because it's giving our body, it's giving our mind, our heart, our soul. I think it's giving the building blocks to say, yeah, I can do this. Like, this is who I am. I have resilience. I have tenacity. I have diligence. And I think so when those moments come in the future, those challenging times, as you said, you have all of this history to back you up and say, no, you've got this. You can do this. Whereas if you don't, and you do let that inner wuss voice say, you know what, it's not a good day. It's raining. I don't feel good. Well, then, like, what building blocks do you have to be lifted on? It's really hard to have that foundation, to not have that foundation to rely on, because it becomes easy. It becomes more simple to just give up. And then that begins to define you, the individual, of, I'm just not that kind of person, or that's just not in the cards for me. It's like, wait a minute, why not? And this is not just racing. Like, for those listening, this is not racing. This is, you're going to the chiropractor. Like, do I have to go 3 times a week? You're taking your supplements. You're going through detox programs. Do I have to eat this way today? Do I have to do this, challenge this week? Yeah, because you're not just doing that for your body, but you're doing it for your mind and your soul. And as you've done this, who have you and who are you becoming as a result of these defining moments?
Yeah. So I'll answer that in 1 second. So there's a quote my father used. It's his. He's like, the results you get is the communication you gave. And he talks about that with interpersonal all the time. But say
that again. Say it again slow, so everyone hears that.
The results you get is the communication you gave.
Nice.
All right. So, and that's usually interactions, whether it was a teammate or, where you work, or it's a friend or a relationship or family. But also, really importantly, you listen to everything you say to yourself, even if it's not coming out of your mouth. So the results you get is the communication you gave. So to answer the question before, what have I noticed? Have I changed to, or what have I become?
Yeah, like, who are you becoming as a result of all these things?
It's really interesting that you asked that, and I've thought about this on and off for some time now, and I started to think as myself as like, I'm identifying now as a runner because I'm doing these cool things, and I'm like, no, that's not who I am. That's what I do. And I realized that I've just become this really resilient, hard to knock off my balance beam of life type of person, because swings and punches, running a business, all of these things are happening 24/7, 365. And do I have fun? Of course I do, all of the fun things we all like to do. But when those hard times, when those storms show up in life, I'm the person that can, step back and take a 50,000-foot view and go, all right, I know I've done hard things. Let's see what this is going to show up. I'm just going to give my all. And whatever happens is going to happen. That's going to be the result. Because I know I've put in work in mental and physical and educational and all of the things that I love to do. I spent a lot of time in them, and it's a lot of energy, because I know I can always fall down to what my training is. I think it's like a Navy SEAL phrase. You don't rise to the level of your training. You fall to where you were if it's the hardest it's going to be. I know the quote's not right, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Your father's a Marine. So for me, I know if I push hard and I do hard things, that when the hard shows up, when it's unexpected, I have my armor on already. I don't have to worry about getting it. I don't have to go, shoot, I wish I had done and learned and did more for my brain and my body beforehand. I'm already there. And I'm constantly moving forward. I'm not at a point where I want to be stand still and static, like, all right, I got it all. Anybody that says that is lying to you. You're either going right, and we talk about this in healthcare and chiropractic and functional medicine or functional health, is you're either getting, what do you call it? You're either getting better or you're getting worse. There's no in between. There's a transition phase in between, but you're going in one direction or the other all the time. So that's really who I've become, is someone that's aware of that. And I know I got to keep pushing the throttle in a better direction.
I think it's really cool. It's so easy to define ourselves by what we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a runner, I'm a chiropractor, health coach, dad, but really I think that for me, I'll say doing these things, the consistency, pushing through, it's really taught me that, hey, who you are is your resilience. Mm-hmm. There's creativity there. There's passion. There's love. And I think those are the things that I want to be defined by, not by, oh, he was a runner or he was a Spartan racer. It's like, no, he had a passion for life and to really just play full out and to test the bounds of his body, not in a way that, is, I don't know, some people could look at it as, hey, maybe that's not safe. And I've had many chiropractic friends say, you could hurt yourself and then you can't practice anymore. I'm like, yeah, but then where's the fulfillment? Where's like the joy and the essence of life if I'm not pushing myself? So there's always this safety, but it's really, I think as I've done this, again, the person that I'm becoming and that I want to continue to become is passionate about life in every facet. And to be able to like feel that, it's like you bite into a juicy peach, right? And you can like taste and the texture and the skin, the juice. And it's like, that is how I want to feel about life and what I'm doing, is to be able to have that texture.
Yeah. And that's a really neat way to think about it. I was thinking about this as you were talking. Why do we do these things, right? Like, what's the why? And I can talk about mine in a minute, but I think when I like just my perception of our society as a whole now, that we'll say in the USA, in this country, we had your father's generation, the Marines, like going through what he went through, but then we have the great generation, that World War II generation, where people would stand up and do the most insanely hard things, like D-Day just happened, like storming a beach in Normandy, knowing there's a very high likelihood that they will be dead. But they had a purpose, they had drive, they knew what they were fighting their fight for. We've had such a soft generation, we're very similar in age, if not the same age. I don't know how old you are, but what I see with people, we just gotten so soft and so comfortable. It's like, oh, I make good money. It doesn't make a difference what I do, or whatever it is. I'm thinking to myself, the training that those soldiers had to go through probably created a lot of defining moments, like we mentioned before, like those daily hard things. They were forced to do, but they signed up for it, most of them, minus the draft, of course, right? But they signed up for it. They showed up. Right, they had that purpose, that drive, and people that were out of shape, had a lower education. They knew that if they wanted to keep our country, they're like, you know what, I'm going to have to do some really hard things. And I want you to think of the country as your body, your mind, your soul. Like, you're going to have to do hard things to evolve. When you don't challenge yourself, you don't grow. I don't care if that's muscle mass or body mass or whatever it is.
Right,
you're not going to grow. So I think that's what I really start to resonate with now is those things. When I think about those that came before us, we have it so easy. We really do. I mean, look at us. We're talking on the internet right now. How cool is that? Like
Right.
we're thousands of miles apart. We can have this and teach from, potentially how many countries in the world right now could people be eventually watching and listening to this?
It's so
It's really
true.
neat. Yeah.
Tony Robbins talks about something where he talks about the seasons of our life, and not just the seasons of our life, but also like the seasons of what we're going through as a society. That we've got winter, spring, summer, fall, and that he also has this saying where, I hope I get it right, where good times make weak people make for hard times.
Yeah.
Hard times make for strong people make for good times, and then the cycle repeats.
Yes, 100%.
And we're really and as he talks about this, we're really in a stage of a society as winter, right? It is hard, right? You look at economic things, and there's been so much plenty for a long time. You think of the 90s, where everything was just booming, 2008, the crash, and then everything just took off. And now again, it's this season of winter. And it really is interesting to watch people and habits and as you said, in general, society, right? It is winter. And you see when people don't prepare for winter, you see the weaknesses, you see the insecurity, the anxiety. And it's really like, if you're not evolving, as you said, then it is hard to survive winter. I mean, I know winters in New York, I mean, they can be rough, especially with those nor'easters.
Yeah.
Winters here in Idaho, they can be pretty freaking cold.
Yeah.
And then, but anyway, the winters, like, we have to prepare for that. And then even in the seasons of our lives, we go through, spring, summer, winter, fall, and anyone can survive in spring and summer, right? It's plentiful, especially spring. Fall is pretty good, but winter, you got to prepare for that. And I think the only way to do that is to, what we've been talking about, create this resilience, create a bank of experiences and consistency of, hey, I can do this. Whatever comes my way, as you said, whatever comes my way, yeah, I can adapt. I can push through. I can work through it. And because you have that bank of experience in the past.
Yeah.
What, you experienced a pretty significant crash, trauma back in early 2000s, right? 2005, 2006.
Oh, I was hit head on by a drunk driver in 2005 when we were down at Palmer.
Right. And you talked about that recently, and you didn't ask for that. Right? I mean, who would?
Yeah.
And I think of, people that come in to see you, that see me, they didn't ask for the challenges that they have, whether it's chronic debilitating pain, whether it's chronic debilitating illness. And yet the way that people show up can be very different. There can be victim, there can be kind of just weak, like I'm weak. There can be, hey, I'm resilient, I'm going to push through this, whatever it takes. But I have to imagine going through, okay, you went through some of this on a Facebook Live that you did, or a Facebook that you did, but I'd love to know, completely derails everything that's going on in life. And what were those days like? And I guess who I'd like you to speak to is those that really do look at it as, I didn't ask for this. Why did this happen to me? Why now? And I'd love for you to speak to that in relationship to that experience. And what did that teach you about your resilience? And what did that teach you about the power that the body has to heal?
Yeah, I think during those times, that if it's an event like being hit head on by a drunk driver, and black and blues from airbags, cartilage torn in my wrist, I'm getting ready to graduate as a chiropractor. I put my right arm out to my wife to, that was going to stop the accident, but it was just that, like I didn't know what was happening right now. It was happening, literally in the snap of a finger. And after this whole thing happened and, realizing how, like when the adrenaline wore off, I wanted to kill the guy that hit us. Once we found out he was a drunk driver, but that's not going to serve anybody.
Right.
And, I realized, okay, like rather than the question is, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen for me? Okay. That's the first question that really will come to mind. And during that time, I mean, it was hard. I sprained like almost every muscle joint in my spine. I'd sneeze and fall on the floor. It was like that type of pain, like that level 11 out of 10 that many of our people in our practice have seen at some point in their life if they're coming in for that type of pain. And now I had to put the work in. Did I want to go see? I didn't, I wasn't going to the student chiropractor. I said during that time, I was seeing a chiropractor down the road,
Hopefully not.
a practicing licensed chiropractor. And I did that, and I had to come in 4 times a week. I'm like, okay, I got to study for class. And we do as chiropractors, I had a great time at school, but man, you're at school from like 7 a.m. to like 4 or 5 p.m. And it's picture 40 credit hours for those that have been to college. 40 credits for most people is like 2.5 semesters. We're doing that in 1 quarter, 3 months, right? So it's a lot of work. So I'm like, I got to do this, and I got to show up and get adjusted. Then I got to like figure out how to rehab my wrist. Then I got to do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, just a lot of stuff. And as I went through this challenge, my first thought in my mind is, my wrist is jacked up. How am I going to be a chiropractor? What else can I do? Right?
That's got to be a real like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like,
if I need surgery,
what about my life now?
Yeah. If I have surgery, metal in my arm or something, I didn't need surgery, which is great. Fully recovered. And, like when I look at my past, like I said, I'm 45. I think it was like 25 at the time. And thinking like, I'm not gonna be able to lift weights anymore. I'm not gonna be able to do anything I start to really enjoy to do as I got older. And it really gave me the wow of the human body. And I think there's a big takeaway for people that are maybe in our practices or seeing other chiropractors or maybe questioning, do I go to a chiropractor? If you had a fractured wrist or torn cartilage, compression fracture in your wrist, you're bruised to all hell, herniated disc in the lumbar spine, sprained everything, a lot of people will give up. And I understand the pain, and I understand that. And what I, became, I believed even more in what I was getting ready to do as a professional, that holy cow, I went in 6 months from a guy that would sneeze and fall in pain, was of the pain in my spine, to someone that now has run 9,000 miles in 7 years. Like, how does that happen? Is I bought into what I was telling people about while I was in school, talking to you and your wife and your daughter about when I was all of these things. And I owned it probably more. I've been in other accidents in life, but that was another defining moment. It's like, holy crap, I can get out of this now. And I want to be stronger than I was before. And patients can get better from, in my humble opinion, anything. I mean, if you have a fractured spine and you're, something is cutting off your spinal cord, that's a different story. I'm not saying that. You can heal from that. It's going to be a different journey for you.
Right.
But showing up at a chiropractor with so many different things, you have the best opportunity to have your central nervous system fire and wire better so you can heal better and stronger and faster than you probably were before the injury. Unfortunately, it takes a crisis for some of us to show up to do something.
It does.
But you shouldn't wait for that crisis to show up. But if you are there, that's fine. We're not gonna yell at you. But if you have the opportunity, the means to, hey, listen, I want to go and get checked at my chiropractor, have them do the proper evaluation, check what's going on with my spine and nervous system and my health, and come up with a plan to make me better. I think this is the opportune time. If you're listening to a podcast like this, the time is now. If you've been thinking about it, the time is now. You really need to show up, because you don't know what you may be preventing in the future, but you also don't know the potential in the future as well. There are two sides of that coin.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. I remember, so when I finished chiropractic school, I mean, I didn't, and I've shared this before with people, but I was probably borderline. I was definitely borderline pre-diabetic. I had no idea, right? Okay. Sugar, like I had to eat every 2 to 3 hours, or I would get massive migraines. And even if I did, I would still often get these massive migraines. And when I started my practice, my health totally tanked. The stress, everything involved with that, I lost about 30 pounds.
Wow.
So I was down to like, I mean, you know how tall I am.
Yeah.
Right. I went down to about 158.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I was a rail. And I remember going to a naturopath, and she shared with me on, you know, her assessment. She's like, you have all the markers that are leading to colon cancer. And this was one of these moments where it would be easy to be like, well, I mean, there goes my life, right? I mean, this is what's going to happen. But it was like, no, this is not defining me. This is not who I am. This is not why I'm here. And it was like, okay, let's do everything I possibly can. And I remember like the plan that she gave me and some of the stuff that she had me eat and drink. I mean, it was, oh my gosh, it was the worst stuff ever. I loathed the thing. And all I could do was liquid diet. I could not eat because I would eliminate everything. Like I could see everything in my stool, meat, vegetable, fruit. Maybe that's TMI, but that's how it was. It was awful. And so she put me on this like liquid diet with tinctures and these different seeds and nuts that I'd have to blend up together. And oh my gosh, it was like, I don't want to do this. But it was like, you have no choice. Like, actually, you do have a choice. You can do this, or you can continue to suffer and lose weight and not get better. And she's like, you need to do this for the next 6 months. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, how can I drink this? Like, I remember the first day that I had the shake, the smell of it was so off-putting. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Jen, I don't know if I can do this. And she's like, it's only day one. Like, you have 6 months to go. And so, you know, I would never want to go back to that point, right? But I would also never trade it, because for these same things, seeing the resilience of the body and seeing how putting in effort and just doing it and not focusing on why me, but like, okay, this is how it is. This is what it is. Now, what are you going to do about it? And at the time, I can say I definitely was not looking at it in terms of how is this working for me. It was definitely like, you got to be kidding. Like, I've been to chiropractic school. I'm here. Why now? Like, why me? But you got to get over that pretty quickly. But it was amazing. Like, over the next year and a half, gained back all the weight, started to develop muscle mass again, started to be able to eat food again, have normal bowel movements again. And I think that when we go through that, even though you're not looking to help and inspire others through that, it does create a different energy about you, that it's like, I've been there. I know what this feels like. I know what it is like. I know what it's taken. And then it's not just, cool, hey, I arrived. I gained all the weight back. I'm good. Now it's like, no, this health continuum. It's not, and you may have this too. I know I experienced this with people. Hey, when am I going to be done? Yeah. When can I stop? And it's like, stop? What do you mean stop? And they're like, well, when can I stop doing all this stuff? And sometimes I really do scratch my head, like, I don't understand the question.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, wait, so are you saying that I need to do this like forever? And maybe not at the same rate, the same pace, but, you know, it becomes lifestyle, right? And so many of these things that we're talking about, I mean, 9,000 miles since 2016, 17.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a lifestyle, right? You had the podcast, Lifestyle Locker. Well, how appropriately named, right? The lifestyle of that. And how do these things, the consistency, the experiences, how does this help you show up for the people that you influence and the people that you work with? And how does that lend confidence to everything that you do in those spheres?
Yeah, I think, with practice wise and people that are around me, other chiropractors that, I've been on stages in front of, what's really neat, like they look at me, I'm that crazy runner chiropractor that, does like 100-mile races. Like they look at me that way, but they also like, if we're talking out in between, other speakers or whatever it may be, when I'm around my sphere of people in the profession, they go, like, how, why, like, this is crazy. You're not like 25 years old and you're doing this stuff now. And what I think it often does to them, it makes them think, oh, this is where I am in my life, health wise or fitness wise. Do I have like the perfect 4% body fat looking, model? But no, I don't, not at all. But I have energy up the freaking wazoo. I'm happy 99% of the time, except for when I'm not, right? and then, but I show up all the time. And what I found is, there are chiropractors that, hey, listen, I signed up for my first 5K. I'm starting to run just because I've listened to you and watched you and do things. So it's not me actually talking to them. They're just experiencing my life. So what I'm so grateful for is that I'm teaching from a level of, I've been there, I've been through this, I'm doing this still, that people feel inspired, not necessarily motivated, because I think of motivation, I think even Tony Robbins will say it's like a shower, like you got to do it every day. Yeah. Once you start to get inspired to do more, a little bit more, there really is nothing that will stop you. And I said my practice as well, it's not, I wish it was everybody. I know it's not. And, I'm working on it, but I have patients that have, I used to bring my ruck into practice from time to time. Like if I didn't have a moment in the morning, I had to do other things. And now they'd be like, well, what kind of exercise do you do? I mean, you're really fit and you look really young for your age. And I'm like, well, this is one of the things, I'll take out my ruck. And it was a 40-pound time. And what people would show up with like 2 weeks later is like, look what I got. And they would show up in practice with the ruck, which is really cool. But also they ask, hey, listen, are you really healthy? Like, what do you do for food or nutrition? And it's like, okay, now the door is open once people see you're leading by example. Yeah. It's like, I look at like, I've seen these pictures of come across social media. It's like ministers of health in all these countries, everybody's 350 pounds. I'm like, this is like it's crazy. Like, really? That's health? This is the person that's guiding the country, whatever country it is, health. Right. And I think that's what I mean. We look at our country, right? We need a lot of help health-wise. We do. And I think we have the solutions where there's two of them right in front of you right now talking, right? Like there's a lot of really good people out there. But I think if we start to take responsibility for the simple actions we take, and then we watch those ahead of us, like I mentioned David Goggins before. I've never met the guy. I'd love to meet him and I'd love to work out and run with him, but God knows he would destroy me in every single thing he does, but that would make me excited. I'm like, wow, I got work to do. But I may be that for the person that's setting up their first marathon or first 50K or even a 5K. So I think when we influence from the front, not because that's our goal, when we influence from the front because that's who we are, makes a really big impact on those in whatever sphere you're around. People see that. Like even my team is, yesterday, one of my teammates, the CAs in our practice, the chiropractic assistants, she's like, oh, you're on that second phase of the thing you're doing right now, right? I'm like, yeah. She goes, well, what is it? And I went through the different things. Oh, cool. She goes, is it working? I go, hold on, on my app, let me open up the picture from day 1, January 1, and I'll open up yesterday. She's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6-pack. Holy, what? Yeah. I show up, right? And you see me in the office. I'm here. I'm present with everybody. So I'm hoping that these things titrate to those that are very, very close to me. I often influence those that are in a wider sphere, if that makes sense. Yeah. But you do the same thing, right? Like I think this is who we are, not who we're trying to influence or who we're trying to be. Right.
I think something cool that you said, and motivation versus inspiration, right? Motivation is kind of short-lived, right? We can be motivated to do something, but I love the word inspire, and I think of like being in spirit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel that like, doing the consistency, doing the hard things, you learn about yourself, right? If you really want to learn who you are, it's set a target and be like in love with hitting that target, and fall in love with that, and then fall in love with the things that you get to do to hit that target.
Yeah.
Because in those things is where you're going to learn, oh, this is who I am. All the stuff around me, the things, whether it's house, car, whatever, those don't matter. It's what's in here. And the only way that I really feel, recognize who that spiritual self, who that soul is by pushing yourself in whatever sphere that is for hard things.
Mm-hmm.
You dig and you realize, dude, there's like a badass in here.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's someone that is amazing, and there's value, and there's light and love and passion. And it's not by just sitting around waiting for things to happen. It's by getting up and making it happen. And so I feel like, as you talked about, that inspiration, spirit speaks to spirit. Yeah. And when people see others, and even if you're just starting and you're thinking, well, I'm like nobody. No, you are somebody, and there's value, and you're going to inspire others because your spirit's going to communicate to somebody else's. Mm-hmm. And they're going to say, oh, wow, this person is doing this. Maybe I want to try this. Maybe this will benefit me too. Maybe this will be a blessing in my life. And I think that's how we begin to heal. Well, we heal ourselves, definitely, but our families, our community, is by doing those things, because our spirit hits another spirit. And that energy just elevates and lifts. And it's so much better than trying to push. Like, I don't want to push. Mm-hmm. I just want to let that spirit, that energy, like flow, and have people feel that and see, hey, here's the consistency, here's the showing up, and recognize, oh, I can do that too.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. It's so important. And we can say all the things, but it really is in the doing and just who we are that resonates with people.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big messages missing in society is we're told, but we look at the people that are influencing, and it's like, yeah, that's really not, there's an inconsistency. There's not a congruency in that.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
for sure. I want to share something that's important. I've shared this on stage. And I think this is really powerful. And this works for me. It may not work for everybody, but I think this may become maybe something that can be researched. Is I think the best way to change your psychology, right? The way our mind works, not the brain. The brain is the physical part, but the mind, that the part that's alive and is really who we are in that spirit. The best way to influence and wake it up what your true potential may be is by doing something that's incredibly physically hard. So when you put your body through an incredible, and I'm not saying, listen, like, just start smashing your hand on concrete or something until it hurts so bad. That's not what I mean. It's going to be your version of hard, but then you got to ramp it up a little bit more. So the best way to influence or change your psychology is to go through something that's physically hard. Because what happens, and you know this, Randy, that when we start to change our physiology, we have all of these hormones and all of these everything is firing through this whole system. And then that wussy mind that we spoke about earlier is like, whoa, slow down. But when you tell it to shut up and you say, no, this is about me, not about you. And we start to change that physiology will start to enjoy a little bit more of that. Okay, this shut my wussy voice up, this little bit of physiological change that was really hard. Right, that may be doing like a 5K on a treadmill for all I know for somebody, and that doesn't make a difference. That's not the point. But when you start to stretch those limits a little bit, I think it's a Navy SEAL thing or maybe a David Goggins thing. He said, when you want to quit, it's either you're at 40% or you got about 40% more to go. Like you're almost at just around that halfway mark.
Yeah.
And I heard that the first time when I was training for my first marathon. I was at this gym that had a sauna at the time, and I go in the sauna. I'm sitting in there after workout, after I just roasted myself on the treadmill and running and lifting weights, and I go in the sauna, I'm dying. It's like 185 degrees or something. I'm like, oh my God, I want to just get out. And this guy sitting next to me, who had obviously listened to the David Goggins book before I did or read it, he's like, you know what the Navy SEALs say? I look at him, I go, I'm thinking, this guy Navy SEAL, I didn't think he was. And he's like, oh, you're not even at 40% now. I'm like, screw it, I'm staying in. I had like 8 minutes left and I was ready. I'm like, I'm just going to tap out. I've done everything today. And I made it through. And that was like one of those little mini defining moments. Like, oh, wow, we can do a lot more than we really think we can. And, you know, I have all of these little moments. And have you heard of James Stockdale?
I haven't, no.
So you're going to have to look him up after the show. I think he was an Air Force pilot during Vietnam. He was the first person to fly in, I believe. He was shot down. He was taken to the Hanoi Hilton, which is one of the worst prisoner of war camps in the world. He survived there for 7 years, being tortured and being in isolation. And when they asked him when he came out and made it through, he said, this experience is going to be a defining moment in my life. And what the people that didn't make it through is they were just waiting for the next thing. They were like, oh, it's Christmas, we'll get out. Oh, it's the New Year, we'll get out. Oh, something is going to, and he just said, I'm going to get out. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get out and keep my mind in a good space. And fast forward, this is like one of the few guys that was able to survive torture for 7 years, you know, the mental torture of being in isolation. And he just talks about that defining moment. And his moment was 7 years, right? So we can look at individual things, but we can look at the big picture. And I have I call them Stockdale moments, right? I have those moments frequently in my life. Sometimes like at a big race like we're talking about, I'll have, we spoke about this yesterday briefly. I attempted a 150-mile race. And I say attempted because I failed.
That's a long
right?
way.
I failed, right? I failed, but I learned, right?
Yeah.
But getting to the point, I hit like mile, whatever it was, 50. I'm like, oh, my knee is really bothering me. I'm like, I'll be fine. That's just like a little tweak I got to get through. And I think it was like mile 68 or 69, I'm at a checkpoint. It's nighttime. It's raining. It's like, I attract rain if you guys haven't figured this out. And I stopped at I have like one of these little 4x4 pop-up tents. It's waterproof and a little chair there. My wife was had just left for the night. And I pop in the chair. I'm like, I got to sit down for a few minutes. And I was in so much pain, but I'm like, I'm going to finish a 150-mile race. In my head, I can finish a 150-mile race. But what I started to listen to was that inner wuss voice, but also the pain combined with it. It was very easy for me to start to follow suit. So I waited about 40 minutes, which in the big scheme of things is not a lot in a 150-mile race. Right. But I ended up tapping out. They gave me, I wish I had grabbed it before, but they gave me, it's called a DNF coin. You get like a poker chip that says DNF. And you know what? I earned it. That's fine. Yep. And what I learned tremendously from that, for anybody that's going to get into any kind of smaller, bigger endurance events, if you don't have a mobility program, but you're going to feel invincible, because you're going to train a lot. You're going to feel invincible and strong and resilient. But what I realized, it wasn't even my knee that was the problem. I jacked my IT band, which is that muscle that goes to the thigh, and this band that goes down beyond the knee, so bad that I'm like, oh, really? And that's what the pain was? Something that I could have taken care of. I should have known better. But all of these things, and I go, well, all right, step back. You live, you learn. I didn't die. Now I can go out and do more. And I started for like the goofiest thing, and I do it at home, was it's I don't have a yoga place, but I look up like YouTube yoga for runners, like the most I'm like the beginner of the beginner. But I did that before this crazy trail marathon that I just did in the beginning of May this year, and I did it 3 days a week for a month. I had just gotten into it, and I'm like, holy cow, no knee, no hip, nothing. And this was technical and steep and the most elevation gain in the shortest period of time I've ever done. I'm like, okay, all right, lesson learned now for real. I just proved to myself that I can get past it without a doubt. So we are way more powerful, like you said many times, than we really think we are. Way more.
And I think we just have to appreciate, I last year was I changed the word expectation. I substituted expectation. No, saying this wrong. I replaced the word expectation with appreciation, right? So everything that I was doing, it was like, can I just appreciate what has happened? Mm-hmm. If I failed, if I didn't hit where I was certain what I wanted, mm-hmm. if it didn't work out right, can I still appreciate what the experience was? And that gave me a greater ability to learn from the different experiences. and then to adapt and change. And I think that's so important for people to hear and listen to, is that, I mean, that 150 miles, that's the target. That's what you want to hit. You did 60 whatever miles. People could say, oh, he didn't do it. Well, yeah, but okay. But you learned, adapted, and now it's like you just did something that was like incredibly challenging. And I think that appreciation for life and experience, the opportunity to learn and grow from each of the experiences, is so critical and so important. And it's so overlooked. Like we look at, I didn't hit the goal, so I failed. No, maybe you didn't make it, but what did you learn? And how has that changed you now? And there's just so many things that are so amazing about doing hard things, and what we learn, what we experience, who we're becoming, who we are in the process. That's just, you don't find it unless you do the things.
Yeah.
And I think that's the take home message is, whatever you're doing now, can you elevate that? Can you lift it? Can you do a little bit more to push yourself to be able to tap into that inner self that, oh my gosh, I am so much more powerful than I think.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
There's joy, there's fulfillment, there's just, it's amazing. So, well, this has been awesome. I have so enjoyed talking with you and just learning more about you, hearing your experiences, sharing your wisdom with all of us. I so appreciate that. Any final thoughts that you have on life, on doing hard things, and then after that, where can people find you?
I would say you're way more powerful than you think you are in every aspect of your life. So do not shortchange yourself anywhere. Do not, because you are better than you think you are. So that would be my final thought. And I really want people to be empowered. I want you to empower yourself. We all have to. It's not anybody else's responsibility. It's, the man or the woman in the mirror. That's whose responsibility it is. And there's always going to be excuses. You either have excuses or you're going to have results. And my result, as you heard just before, I failed at things before. Many, many times. That wasn't my first DNF in a race, right? Because of a problem. So it doesn't define you just to have something that's challenging that you're doing that you don't fully complete. So be powerful, make the choice to do hard things. And for those that want to find out more about me, NewYorkChiropractic.com is our practice site. I'm all over social media. I'm at Dr. Josh Handt on, Instagram and TikTok. We have a business page on Facebook, but if you want to find me, just search my first name and last name. You'll see me. I think I'm like a suit picture. Josh Handt. I just cleaned out about 1,000 people who were not interactive with me. So there's plenty of room if anybody wants to join. And we're going to be revamping shortly our podcast side of our practice. And we have the brand is Lifestyle Locker, as you mentioned, but the podcast is called The Human Powered Life. The new one, right? So there's lots of cool things. I mean, if you like this, you'll also enjoy what we have to say. It's going to resonate very well with you. So those are the best places.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So appreciate you, your time, your life, what you do, who you are, and awesome talking with you. Hey, I want to thank you for listening to the podcast. Thanks for being a part of this. Please, again, like and share. And until next time, keep it real.